And it's not just like structured exercise either. So I think one thing that I'm sure a lot of people are guilty of is if they can't fit in that hour session at the gym, or they can't, go for their regular Saturday surf or swim, then they won't do anything at all. But in fact, what's really important about the benefits of exercise for diabetes management is the importance of incidental activity and purely just breaking up periods of sitting and moving around as much as possible. What kind of benefits have you seen from just being more active at various intervals throughout the day, and how's that impacted your diabetes?
Yeah, that made such a good point. So yeah, I like to think about exercise in two ways, or activity in two ways. Structured exercise, which is what you think about, like showing up to the gym, reps and sets, specific exercises, specific intensity, duration, all of that stuff. And then non-exercise physical activity. So completely unstructured, incidental stuff. So walking to the shops to get your groceries, carrying them home, gardening, walking after meals, doing housework, dancing, whatever it is you want to do, right? That's not structured. There's no reps and sets. There's no specific intensity or structure, right? There was actually an amazing study. Forgive me, I can't remember the title of it, but it was a great study looking at, I think it was across 14 hours of the day. They compared three groups. So one group of people did one workout for an hour and spent the other 13 hours sitting, completely sedentary. Another group did 6 hours of walking and standing and like incidental sort of stuff, and then 8 hours sitting, and compared whether that 1 hour of exercise was enough to offset 13 hours of sitting. And they looked at insulin sensitivity. I believe they looked at lipids and a couple other biomarkers. But the group that did the incidental physical activity, 6 hours of sort of standing and walking with 8 hours of sitting, exceeded the group that did the hard workout for an hour and sat for 13 hours. So it's really time on your feet. And again, going back to contracting muscles, if you're just sitting still for 13 hours versus somebody who spends 6 hours, even if it's very small contractions, but moving around, fidgeting on the feet, walking, standing, getting up out of a chair, that's enough to offset some of that sitting. Whilst the 1 hour of exercise, whilst it's very beneficial, it's not going to offset 13 hours of being sedentary. So obviously the takeaway here is not to just not exercise and stand for 6 hours, it's to do both, right? So have your structured exercise, have a workout routine that you follow, or at least, some kind of structure. And this could be cardio training, it can be weights training, it can be a combination, it can be circuits. It doesn't really matter. It's just that structured exercise where you actually increase your heart rate to an intensity that's required, to improve your fitness, in combination with non-exercise physical activity throughout the day. So those 6 hours of walking around, getting your step count up, doing the physical work at home or at work or whatever your job is, and trying to piece those two together is the key.
Mate, I'm number one culprit here, sitting down for this podcast for a couple of hours. I should start doing standing podcast, I think.
Do an exercise snack after this. We'll both do 50 air squats.
Might do some squats to finish off.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, going down that line, I guess there's also some really timeless research that's come out of the Baker Institute. Dunstan and colleagues in 2012, they did the study breaking up periods of prolonged sitting and how this reduced postprandial blood glucose levels and insulin responses. And what they did was they had 19 overweight, obese adults between the ages of 45 to 65. And they were randomized to 3 different treatment groups. Now, the first group was just uninterrupted sitting. So they had taken a 75, kind of like what we were talking about with the oral glucose tolerance test, but they had taken a drink which consumed 75 grams of glucose or carbohydrate and 50 grams of fat. The other 2 treatment groups were a 2-minute bout of light intensity walking every 20 minutes after consuming that drink. And then the other group was a 2-minute moderate intensity walk every 20 minutes after consuming that drink. So it was basically just about breaking up periods of prolonged sitting every 20 minutes for a light or a moderate intensity 2-minute walk. And what they found was that there was actually a 24 to 29% reduction in their postprandial blood glucose levels between both the light and moderate intensity walking groups. So it was only about a 5%
Mm.
difference between the light and moderate intensity. And I think the really important message there is it's not about how hard you're walking during those breaks. It's simply about just getting up and moving. You can get a massive benefit just from being on your feet, as you said, using a lot of those muscles that we don't use when we're just stationary, sitting at our desks during our day.
Right. I think it's such an empowering message because for a lot of people who do suffer from high postprandial blood glucose levels, who maybe have type 2 or overweight or obese, the thought of like going on a run or getting on the bike, it can be, there's resistance, you know, there's fear and anxiety associated with some modes of exercise. But if you say to them, hey, you know what, just go on a walk at your pace. It doesn't even matter. Just at least spend enough time. There's like a key amount of time to spend on your feet and you're going to improve your blood glucose. Well, that's a pretty easy message to digest, right? Compared to you got to go to the gym now and get on a bike. Like it's, you know, you could take your dog for a walk, go up to the local park, do a couple of laps, take your time, you know, carry a backpack if you want a little bit of extra load to make it a bit harder, but you don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to be a gym junkie to get the benefits of physical activity.